How do you rob banks without getting caught?
Hey, Tom Peng, love what you're doing on your channel, buddy. Super congrats. You know, giving your time and energy to nonprofit business channel. Look, man, keep driving that audience. So, Tom Peng, look forward to spending some time with you. I know you got the right mindset, so I'd love for you to share some of that from the big V. God bless, be great. 10X.
So very recently, there's this girl called Phong Thi Tan, I believe, and she was a contestant in a lot of the Vietnamese game shows, music competitions, and she tried to win money from these competitions, but she failed. She owed a lot of money, and she went to Techcombank and she tried to rob it, and she actually robbed it and took 2 billion dong from Techcombank, and she ran away. But 3 hours later, police caught her, and I guess she's going to prison. And I even made a rap song about it. Go check that out. I want to talk about how to properly rob a bank, because, you know, I can't believe what Miss Phong did. That is just completely stupid, because there are much smarter and better ways to rob banks without getting caught. And today, Tom is going to teach you how to do it. So before I talk about how to rob banks, before I teach you how to do it, I want to talk about 2 cases that I can remember, all right? 2 cases, successful bank robberies that, you know, the thief or the person robbing the bank actually got away with the money or, you know, didn't get caught, right? Well, I'll explain more. But, you know, I want to tell you these 2 stories first. So one, probably the largest bank heist, the biggest bank robbery in history, was done by the North Korean government. You may not know this, but Google this, you'll find information about this. So back in, I think, I believe it was, I can't remember what year, but basically, you know, North Korea was under a lot of sanction, and, you know, the country is really poor, they really need money, and plus, you know, Kim Jong-un, you know, needed money, right? He needs to be in his Mercedes, he needs his like cigars and liquor, he needs money to keep up with his lifestyle. So, you know, but the North Koreans, they have a pretty smart, you know, cyber army, right? Cyber army unit. So, you know, so they started hacking computers, right? So they start sending out these viruses to banks, you know, like central banks of different countries. And they sent a virus to, you know, the central bank of Bangladesh, you know, Bangladesh being, you know, another poor country in, you know, next to India. And, you know, somebody in the central bank actually, you know, opened the file, the computer was infected, and then the virus was spreading inside the bank. Nobody knew about it. And so the North Korean agents had full control, full access to the computer systems inside the Bangladesh, you know, central bank. And they start to study, you know, the processes, the business processes inside the bank. And they start noticing what they do, when they do it, and they notice that, you know, they check international transfers, bank transfers, by printing out all the transfers and reading it on paper. So the North Koreans figured that out. So they hacked into the printer and break the printer so the printer cannot print anymore. So for one day, the printer wasn't working. And so, you know, there was nothing printing out, and, you know, the Bangladesh bankers couldn't check the transactions. And we're talking about like interbank transfers. We're not talking about me sending money to you. We're talking about bank to bank, you know, SWIFT. SWIFT being the way, you know, money is transferred from banks to banks, you know. And, you know, the North Koreans hacked into that and got their bank, you know, login credentials. They got the IDs and password to use, you know, SWIFT as a bank agent to transfer money. So while the printer was down and the Bangladesh bankers couldn't check transactions, the North Koreans created 35 transactions. All right, and those 35 transactions were sending to many, many different bank accounts around the world, of course, owned by the North Koreans. All right, and then totaling about $1 billion. Okay, 35 transactions, $1 billion going all over the world. So some transactions are 60 million, some transactions are 100 million, some transactions are 35 million, so on, right? And then luckily, because all the international transfer need to go through an intermediary bank, and that intermediary bank is in New York City, United States. And something was weird about these transactions, so it triggered an alarm, a warning. So 30 of the 35 transactions were stopped for review. So they have to be reviewed, so the money was held. But 5 transactions went through to the destination. And then the 5 transactions totaled about $100 million. And then once they reached the destinations, the North Koreans then transferred them to Macau, and then we don't know where the money went after that. So North Koreans hacked into the Bangladesh central bank and got away with $100 million. I can't remember what year, but this actually happened. And it was a successful bank heist that the Bangladesh government never got the money back. But we were able to figure out that the North Koreans did it, because after they studied the code, the computer code that of the virus, they started figuring out that this has to be done by the North Koreans because of the some of the Korean texts and so on. So that is story number 1, how this time a government successfully robbed the bank, And I'll give you another story how a group of people successfully robbed a bank. All right, this one's kind of sneaky. So in Argentina, well, this is also at a time when the economy wasn't doing so well. It was just starting to recover, right? And then in Argentina, because before there was a big financial crisis, things were really bad, and it was just starting to recover. And there's a group of Argentinian men. They decided to rob a bank, and they really planned it out, right? They planned this out for months, meticulously, every detail, and they execute that plan extremely well, just like the movie Ocean 11, right? Almost like that. Okay, so let me tell you the story. The Argentinian men, this group of men, decided to rob this bank, but they know that it's kind of hard to rob a bank. So before they rob the bank, they find the drawings for the sewage system inside the city. So they know what waterways are under the bank. So they find a way to get under the bank. They drill a hole in the wall, and then basically they have a way to get out of the bank after they rob the bank, without coming out from the front door. Okay, so on the day they're gonna rob the bank, they bring their guns and everything. They go into the bank. This is a bank robbery. I'm gonna rob this bank. Listen to what I say, do what I do, or I'm gonna fucking kill you. Something like that, right? And then everybody's, I'm so scared. Oh my God, don't kill me. Right? And then the men, the bank robbers, they calm everybody down. Just do what I say, we won't kill you. And then everybody will calm. And they sat on the floor. And then the police were surrounding the bank. The police are like, we have you surrounded. Come out, or we will do something, blah, blah, right? And then, so the police was around the bank. The bank robbers couldn't get out, obviously, because it was surrounded by police. But remember, the robbers already planned an exit route. So basically, after they rob the banks, they blow a hole in the wall, and then they left through the sewage system. And then the police then tried to call the robbers, the thieves. And then there's no answer. And then after some time, the police got worried, and finally they stormed the bank. They found all the hostages, on the floor. Sometimes some with their hands tied to the back, and all looked very scared. But they can't find the thief. They cannot find the robbers because the robbers already escaped from the sewage system, and they don't know who did it. They found no evidence because the robbers was pretty smart. They left a lot of hair. They go to a hair salon and they find a lot of hair and they throw hair everywhere. So it's like they leave a lot of false evidence in the bank so that they can't catch the thief. They cannot identify who the robbers are. And this went on for some time. They couldn't figure out who did it. And it was like, who did this, right? And then eventually the robbers were caught, unfortunately. Or actually, I should say fortunately, because one of the men in the group, he cheated on his wife. Not good. And the wife knew about the plan, and the wife went to the police. And that was the end of that group. That's how they got caught. Otherwise, it would have been a perfect plan. I am not telling you to rob banks, all right? In fact, I already made a video about that. Play the clip. Because when they do something that's high risk, their reward is also very high, right? That's why people rob banks, right? Very high risk. You get caught, you go to prison, and they shoot you in the fucking head, right? Very, very high risk. I'm not telling you to do it. Don't do that, please. Don't do it. Don't be a fucktard, right? Don't fucking rob a bank, you stupid dumbass. See, I told you not to rob a bank. Don't be stupid, People rob banks because they want fast and easy money. And in this YouTube channel, we tell people that that is not the way to be successful. That's not the way to have a lot of money because it takes hard work, effort, and time and energy to make money or to achieve success. This is what Tom says. Don't rob a bank. Don't be stupid. Don't be an idiot. Robbing banks is not the way to be successful. The consequence, the cost of getting caught is very, very high. I can't imagine what would happen to Feng Thi Tan. Probably a very sad story there, right? So, how do you rob a bank without getting caught is what you really want to know, right? I would never tell you to go rob a bank. I would never tell you to do anything that's illegal. But I can tell you this. You can 100% rob a bank without getting caught. Because you can rob a bank by not doing anything illegal, right? You can do it completely legally. So you must be thinking, Tom, are you fucking crazy? How can you rob a bank legally? Well, I'm gonna teach you how. And nobody on the fucking internet is teaching you this. Except I am. I'm teaching you this, right? And everything I say is true. You can Google this, you can find out. And this is how you rob a bank. I've done it. Let me explain. COVID-19 or any other financial crisis. For example, 2008, there was a big financial crisis. Now we have COVID-19, right? So the economy is terrible, right? Lots of people losing their jobs, businesses are shut down, governments are scared. Governments are worried that the economy is going to collapse. So what do? They use monetary policies to, stimulate economic, growth, right? Because when things are bad, when the economy is not doing so well, COVID-19 causes people to lose jobs, business is not operating, and the government has to step in and say, hey, we gotta help these people. So what do? They use monetary policy. They say, well, let's lower the interest rate. So in North America, it was already very low. It was like 1 or 2% to borrow money, but now it's even lower, right? In some European countries, for example, even before COVID-19, they have negative interest rates. And that is a ridiculous idea that you probably don't even know about. Imagine this, a country has a negative interest rate. So if you put money in the banks of that country, they don't give you interest. They actually charge you money to keep your money. For the privilege of putting your money in their bank, they will charge you money. They will charge you interest. They will charge you 2% interest to keep your money there. So what do? You're like, fuck that. I'm not gonna like put my money in the bank and give you 2% every month or every year, right? That's not gonna happen. So what happens? People don't put their money in the bank. They use it, they spend it, they invest. They buy stocks, they buy bonds, they invest in businesses, and that's how they stimulate the economy. If nobody is playing safe, if the interest rate is so low that people don't want to put in the banks, they instead invest in the economy that is supposed to stimulate the economy, right? Donald Trump is actually an advocate for negative interest rate in the United States. But I don't think it'll happen because the central banks in the United States don't want that to happen yet. But I think it's a matter of time. Even in the United States, you're gonna start to see negative interest rates. It already happened in some European countries, right? In Vietnam, the interest rate is still like, I don't know, 6%-ish to borrow money, I don't know. When times are difficult, when the economy is bad, that interest rate will come down. And when the interest comes down, it's cheaper to borrow money. So if you go to the bank and say, I want to borrow $1 million, now it's cheaper to borrow that money, right? Because you only have to pay 1 or 2% of interest in, say, Canada. Maybe you only have to pay 4% interest now in Vietnam, right? And in European countries, you pay negative interest. Basically, you go to a bank, you say, I want to borrow money. They give you money. And then, guess what? They actually pay you for borrowing money. Let me give you this money. You can borrow it. Thank you for borrowing my money. And in fact, I will give you more money for borrowing my money. You think I'm kidding. You think this is crazy, but it's all true. Negative interest rate. Google it, right? So how do you rob a bank? Basically, you go to a bank that has a negative interest rate somewhere in Europe, right? And you say, I want to borrow $1 million. And if you actually get the $1 million, they will give you interest for borrowing. Isn't that like robbing a bank? Right? But you say, Tom, but in Vietnam there's no negative interest. Or in the United States there's no negative interest. In Canada there's no negative interest. How do you rob the bank then? Well, there's so many ways, right? I will teach you one, right? This is stuff that they will not teach you in like business schools. You'll go to business school, they will teach you a lot of stuff over the 4 or 5 years, but they will never teach you this. And this is actually the most practical thing you can learn. This is the University of Tom, okay? If you have money, banks want your money. They want you to deposit your money in their bank, right? For example, if I go to Vietcom Bank, actually the Vietcom Bank guy will tell me, Tom, we have KPI. You can really help us if you deposit more money in our bank. It will help us reach our KPI, and that's good for us. And which I will reply, well, what's in it for me, right? How can I benefit from this? If you can set up an agreement or a arrangement with the bank, if I put my money, it has to be a lot, right? If I put my money in your bank, and you're gonna give me preferential interest rate. Let's say you give me 2%. Okay, that's pretty good. In Canada, that's considered pretty good, right? You give me 2% if I put my money in your bank because you really want me to deposit into your bank because you have KPI. You need people to deposit in your bank, right? And I will do it. I will put my money there, but you have to give me 2%. But for me to do that, I want an arrangement with the bank so that I can borrow money from the bank at 1%. So do the math here. I put my $1 million into the bank and I get 2% interest, all right? But I can have a line of credit. I can borrow money from that same bank at 1%. And let's say my credit line is say, I don't know, 10 million. I put my $1 million there, I get 2% interest. By doing that, they promise they give me a line of credit, access to money, as much as $10 million at 1%. Isn't that like negative interest rate? I borrow money from the bank and I still make money from the bank. Isn't that like negative interest rate? So that is how you rob a bank legally without going to jail. You're welcome. Take fucking action. And don't be a fucktard. Don't rob a bank.